Plant crops, raise sheep, dig up boulders, and use your resources wisely in Hallertau. Thank you for joining us at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Melissa Delp.
And I'm Kevin Delp. Hallertau is a competitive worker placement farming game for 1 to 4 players, plays in about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and is designed by Uwe Rosenberg.
It's published by Lookout Games, a division of Asmodee, who sent us this copy to review.
The board is set up with cards and possibly some workers depending on player count.
Players receive a few different boards, tiles, cards, starting resources, and more.
Here's a quick overview of the game. The game is played over 6 rounds with 10 phases in each round, like gaining workers and income, placing workers to take actions, and harvesting.
We won't explain each phase in detail. A lot of them are actually performed simultaneously by players because they just involve some upkeep. We're going to give you a general outline of how things work and then give you our thoughts and experiences at the end. The bulk of the game is the action phase. Players place out workers onto the various spots to gain different kinds of resources, fields to place on your field board, and sowing to place crops on these fields. Each time an action is used, it takes more workers to activate it.
In later phases, you'll be moving fallow fields up and then harvesting your crops by moving them horizontally to show how many of that good you now have. Then your harvested fields go down a space.
If you have any sheep, each one produces milk. Then comes another major part of the game, the progress phase.
You spend your resources to start moving the different buildings to the right. If you can move all the buildings at least one space, then you move your community center to the right as well. You'll notice the number in the window increases. This is the number of workers you'll receive for the next round. But there are boulders in the way, so you'll have to get tools during the game to move those buildings faster.
Managing your resources and tools for moving boulders is so important. The cost to move your buildings increases each round, so the more you can move them early in the game, the cheaper it will be. Another important part of the game is the cards. There are 4 main decks: Gateway, Farmyard, Bonus, and Point cards.
You start with a few cards at the beginning of the game. Some give you benefits like resources when you complete them, some points at the end of the game. For some cards, you just have to meet certain requirements, and for others, you have to spend resources.
Completing bonus cards gives you ongoing income during Phase 3 of each round. That can be really helpful. Most of them also are worth endgame points.
A few of the cards will even give you another card after you complete them.
Well, and then another way to get cards is to spend workers to pick them up.
One game, I really went after completing cards, and I did pretty well. But I didn't move the community center, and it really hurt me in the end.
Yeah, that game, I was able to move my community center all the way to the end, so I got 70 points, plus I got points from cards, so that was a great game. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it, but it worked out in the end.
I still like all the cards. It makes the game fun and interesting for me. And for a couple of decks of cards, there are different levels that you can choose from to play with. Beginner, advanced, expert, master, or a certain emphasis like hops, sheep, fields, or jewelry.
Not only will you get points for moving your community center, but also for moving your buildings far enough too. You can get quite a few points this way.
It seems when you first play, there are too many phases. 10 phases can seem like a lot to keep track of, but the game flows pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. And most of those phases are really quick. The big phase is that actions phase, and it does feel pretty much like a regular worker placement. But as those places get filled, they cost more workers to take the action, so it's really important that you get more workers during the game.
I agree. The workers are an important part of the game, and I find that really interesting because they're all the same color. When I was first learning about the game, I was like, where are my personal workers? But it makes sense as you play that you just need a number of workers each round as you take your actions.
I think the theme comes through in the planting and harvesting on your player board, and the names of the different farming actions, like sheep shearing, which gives you a wool for each of your sheep. Moving the buildings, though, that feels like you're just turning in resources.
I love the different resource shapes. They make the theme come through, too, for me. I really enjoy game designs from Uwe Rosenberg. Recently he's designed a lot of tile laying games, New York Zoo, Cottage Garden, and Patchwork, but Hallertau is more in the vein of Agricola with a farming theme. I still think I might like Agricola a little bit better, but Hallertau is pretty good.
Well, I'm sure some people will appreciate that they don't have to feed their workers in this game. So Hallertau brings some interesting choices as you play the game, and I love games with choices. Things like, should I spend my workers for tools instead of taking actions? Should I spend resources to complete cards or to move buildings? Am I going to go after cards and the turn order rooster with my workers? Basically, the game is all about trying to find efficient ways to use your resources, plant, harvest, and move your buildings and boulders.
One thing I don't like about the game is the luck of the draw. Because there are so many cards in the game, you could get super lucky and get cards that really work well together, or sometimes you gain cards that are really difficult to complete. I think even though I love the card play in the game, I wish there wasn't as many cards to keep it a little less swingy.
Yeah, I like the cards because they sort of give you a goal to go after. I will admit that I did get some cards that worked really well together, like requiring sheep and milk. I do think that the more familiar you are with the game, the less swingy the cards will be because you'll be able to adjust your strategies better.
I also like this game a lot more at the 4-player count. At the lower player count, only certain quadrants are going to be activated at the beginning of the round to remove workers. So if you're planning on taking a certain action, it may not even be available to take at a lower player count because that space is still filled with workers. You do need a lot of space in front of you since you have a few different player boards and then the main board on top of that. So make sure you play on a bigger table.
I like how your supply area works for harvesting. It's nice and easy to just move the resources over, but it's a bit fiddly for holding all of your other resources, moving them up and down as you gain and lose them. If I want to plant a barley, I need to remember to move my token down from 4 to 3 and then get another resource to put on my field. Overall, I enjoyed playing Hallertau. I like the puzzly aspect of making the most of your actions and being able to efficiently move your buildings, but it's not my favorite Rosenberg game. If I had to rank this one among games that came out in 2020, it would probably make my top 20 of 2020, but not my top 10.
I've also enjoyed playing the game, and I'd recommend this game if you enjoy worker placement type games, especially if you enjoy Uwe Rosenberg games of this nature like Glass Road, Agricola, Fields of Arle. Check it out from Lookout Games.
And thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.
And that might not even be available because there are still spaces available.
Because there aren't any spaces available.
Yeah. I'll just zoom in really close.
Yeah, I like that the cards are there, blah, 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 blah.
You weren't ready?
I wasn't ready, and it was just coming up.
Oh, I can go a little. That's fine. It seems when you first play, there are too many phases. 10 phases can be difficult to be